hard questions, and I can handle that stuff under pressure. So this kind of aligns with what I'm really good at. I am a Steelers fan, so hopefully that doesn't hurt me. Um, but yeah, other than that, I'm super happy with Costa. We've made something really, really special here, and I'm always excited to bring on new partners and vendors that we have for us. So it's great to meet all of you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Mic check.
Gotcha.
Oh, there you go.
This is actually my first Teams meeting on this laptop. So I had to like open my preferences and okay, cool. Appreciate the patience, everybody. And also appreciate you guys having Withco join. This is great. Very excited to kind of hear more about this and see if we can be involved. So I'm Kyle. I'm part of the investments team at Withco. I lead the acquisitions effort. I've been doing the triple net kind of buyer side for about 4 years now. I started off at a public REIT. I've been involved in, through investment committee wise, maybe 400 to 500 transactions for, a little under $2 billion over the last 4 years. And love the space. It's a lot of fun. You get to meet people at Costa who create these great brands and go ahead and grow them. And you kind of get to be a growth partner side by side. So it's a lot of fun doing this stuff. Like I said, excited to do it. I am a Giants fan, born and raised in New Jersey. So funny to say I'm in here with a Steelers fan, Patriots fan, but we made the playoffs this year. Not going to talk about it. And I'll kind of leave it there. And Mike, if you're on here, I know you're on here. So if you want to go ahead and kick it over to you.
Yeah, definitely. Born and raised in Boston here. So I share your pain as a Patriots fan. It's a brutal season. But anyway, guys, thanks for having us on here. I work alongside Kyle. We're actually at the same net lease REIT in a prior role and both left to join Withco here. So, definitely well versed in the net lease space. We're really bullish on auto and really I myself, I kind of oversee our underwriting, our group here. So, definitely excited to, talk with everyone here on Costa Oil today.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Kyle. I didn't want to skip over Justin as well. I know he was on the phone. I apologize.
And just real quick, the common thread here is Nick Neonakis. That's who introed us to both parties on this call.
Oh, nice.
Great point there. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Justin Arnold, head of compliance with the Costa Oil team. I started my career in corporate law. I'm originally from Washington, D.C., in that area. I grew up in suburban Maryland. Currently, I live in York, Pennsylvania. It's not too far from Hanover, where we're headquartered. And, Costa and I have I've been working together on this franchising effort for the last couple of years. And, it's it's been a roller coaster ride and a wonderful one at that. So we're looking forward to having this conversation and learning more about possible synergies and working together.
Fantastic. Thank you as well, Justin. So with that, I can't agree more with everything Costa, Justin, everyone had just said. I think we all think personally, and John and I connected on the side with Troy about this as well, there are some really great synergies amongst all three of our groups for relationships here, specifically to serve Costa, and then with Withco, potential opportunities we think outside of this realm for other services that we're working on throughout the country. Although it's a small team on this call today, through SITEOlogy and 7 Solutions, we do represent close to 500 employees spread throughout the United States. We've touched every McDonald's in the country at least twice, every Walgreens at least 1.5 times. Troy's built half the BPs out there. And so we're very well versed in the multi-site space. And as Costa pointed out, that connection through Nick has been incredible. Very grateful for the opportunity to have met Nick and continue this journey together. So with that, Costa, I know we sent you an early on proposal. That was anywhere USA pricing. And again, full transparency, we do that because each side of Main Street can be a totally different animal when it comes to a project, depending on the zoning and permitting and whatnot. So we wanted to get you some bands to keep the conversation going. So with that, I'll turn it over to you. Any thoughts or input to start this out?
Yeah, so I'm just going to give a little context to kind of bring everybody that where we are at the moment as an organization and how we got here. when we first set out to franchise, obviously having a building be the unit economics that our building is, we knew that volume was going to be important to make there be enough juice to make it worth everybody's time. And so in the beginning, the biggest hurdle was convincing people we were going to sell enough franchises. So when we did our original vendors, we were telling them we're going to sell 50 in the first year, which we ended up selling almost 79. And then they were like, oh, we're not big enough, and so then we lost vendors very early on. And so then we had to scramble to find new vendors, and we got put in this position where we have this leaseback program where the money side of it is also tied to the construction side, and the bottleneck became the architect himself. And so it became this process where we're like, do we even have the ability to build these buildings? So I had participated in a blind auction with Speedway, and I had bought several properties to basically just eliminate any kind of excuses that this leaseback program could have. And we're just now breaking ground on our first building in St. Albans, West Virginia. And so we have 160 plus territories sold. So 160 contracts, like contractual obligations to have buildings built between over 60 individual franchisees. And the queuing that is happening right now, I feel like our master broker, because we have a really good master broker, a company called Morrow Hill, I feel like they're holding off on signing leases because they're just not sure if our current system has the ability to actually build these buildings in a timely enough fashion. And so, I have these properties. Obviously, I sent that one over to you that I have in Warren, Ohio. I have several more, but that was literally the reason I bought them. I was like, okay, there should be no excuses to get this building built. I bought those properties in December of 2021, and the excavation just started a couple weeks ago. So, everyone on our team agreed that we kind of outgrew the current leaseback program, especially with the way that the construction was going to happen. And that's when I reached out to Nick about, okay, what contacts do you have that you think could help us? And here we are today. So I have the proposal right here because I read things better when I physically have it. I can't do PDFs. Honestly, between where we were in 2020 and where we are today, we understand that a lot has changed. Labor has changed. GCs are having trouble getting labor to even, do the backlog of work that they have. So there is a premium for services like you guys to help offload that from us, because no one on our team has built a building before. So we need, I tell our architect all the time, like, if you don't want to be on the conditional use hearing, like, show us. Let us offload some of that work, but it just doesn't seem scalable. And so, and obviously none of us have been on a conditional use permit or a special use hearing, or we're not land use attorneys. So, this program looks like it could be a great solution to our needs. And as long as it pairs up well with the money side, because Bob, I know you said on our last call that you guys have connections, but with the Withco connection, it could be just like a perfect synergy depending on how you guys need to be funded and how they release funds. That's why I had asked them to be on the call so that we could figure out what this program would actually look like.
Thank you. And fantastic summary. Troy, looked like you were going to chime in there.
Yeah, what I wanted to go through and say is that's actually the expertise that we have actually is taking land that's, contracted or at least of interest, doing the due diligence homework on it, and then providing timelines for actually taking those buildings out of the ground. One of the things I was interested in is when you said you outgrew was it your A&E firm that you outgrew, or was it a vendor in particular that you outgrew?
Oh, it was everyone in the beginning. I mean, it was our master broker who sold us on, they said they had done 300 Rita's shaved ice the year before, and then they were like, oh, you sold too many units, we're not going to be able to find those leases. And then it was the construction company, which was a company called Pleasant Valley Corp out of Medina, Ohio, and they were like, we don't have the project managers to be able to do this, and so like it just we sold. Well, what happened was we kept our promise, and then everyone else kind of reneged on theirs.
Yeah, what I would like to say is the good thing about our company is, as Bob talked about some of our volume, I believe it's difficult to outgrow us simply because of the number of projects that we've done. I actually am from Ohio, specifically near Medina.
So you know,
I know of Pleasant Valley, and there are some other guys out of yes. In fact, you can throw my name at them, and it comes from BP days. But I think the big thing that we do to avoid, I'm not going to say overgrowth or whatever, is we implement a pretty rigid process, meaning if you have a prototype, that's what we do our best to actually build and replicate. Building 160 snowflakes isn't really possible. What I like to say is it's building the factory, and the factory stamps out the same type of offer. I think it's very important from an operation standpoint, as well as, consistency of image, consistency of offer. One of the things, Bob had sent this to me previously, and my immediate conversation with him, this is begging for a modular building. Only because of speed to market, you can get state certified approvals, particularly in Pennsylvania and Ohio. So there are some very efficient ways to do it. And I think that's what we, as we go forward, that's the idea, is do a consistency of offer that it's a replication, meaning there's no shock at the end of the day of what we're building. So that's my 2 cents.
I will add,
and I don't know if Bob has gone over this with you.
Yeah, I will add that we went pretty far down the road with ModLogic, which is a modular builder here in Pennsylvania, and they wouldn't give us the price breaks on volume until a certain amount were built, so it made the first 10 buildings kind of fall outside of the bounds of the unit economics that we wanted to keep for our franchisees. We haven't revisited that in over a year, but the sheer amount of units that we've sold, we're hoping that the volume is there now to get the pricing to a place where everyone is comfortable. We've moved the goalposts on our pricing model because of the change in labor costs and the change in supplies costs. Even though supplies has gone down recently, it's a little bit, but we understand that it's not 2020 pricing anymore.
Yeah, that's true. So,
and we've also gotten away, because of that. We've also gotten away from the one bay model, which was way more viable when we could put this up for $300,000. And now, we understand with modular, there's no real economy of scale. When something's modular, you could put 2-3 bays on it, and it's a marginal increase in the overall cost. So we've basically defaulted to 2 bays unless the real estate doesn't allow for it.
Yeah, what we used modular almost exclusively when I was at BP. We did some stick build, but it was primarily modular. And what we saw is the biggest advantage was obviously being able to depreciate over 5 years. That's the true cash flow benefit of modular.
And that's why we used the term kiosk specifically, was just to cover that exact basis. We don't refer to it as a building, we refer to it as a kiosk. That benefits us if we're using a private investor base. I'm sure Withco can figure out the depreciation side of it if they're the ones that are owning the buildings, but there is obviously a massive tax benefit to depreciating the building over 5 years versus 20 or 30.
Exactly. All right. Well, we can get into the logistics of that, but it's pretty easy to do. All you have to do is be able to prove that the building can be moved. And with a modular building, it's pretty easy to do. So we at At Bob and mine's parent company, Seven, we actually have a partner in modular buildings. It's Fry Moss out of Georgia. And with your permission, I would love to flip this drawing to them to see their thoughts on it. As far as your lifts go inside, do you use entirely above ground lifts, meaning you're not sinking any?
No, we paid $38,000 to have a concrete mold made, and so we have what we call our self-contained pits. So we have all the petroleum products are above grade, right? Because these local town officials are sometimes morons, and they don't understand the difference between below ground and below grade. And just because something's below grade doesn't mean it's below ground. I've gotten into it with fire marshals that have told me my tanks need to be registered with the state EPA, and I'm like, I'm not a gas station. Like, that's not how this works. These are lubricants. It's not, there's no hazmat materials on site, especially since we don't do anything other than oil changes. There's no waste coolant, which is, the only thing that quick lubes have. I don't know, I'm not super familiar with Teams, but I do have some pictures of what I'll do is I'll just email them to Bob real quick.
Okay.
And he can show. This is what our pits look like.
And Costa, as I'm waiting for those, I think one thing is we, morph into the, because my computer sometimes runs slow and I got Teams going. What I was really excited about after seeing all of the information that you prepared is that typically with many clients, especially newer businesses, franchisees that are going into the scalable space, we typically spend hours just talking about prototyping. What I loved about you guys is you've put that thought in. So outside of some value engineering and some just continued tweaking, you really are ready to run at scale. And what we love about that is it's a lot easier for us to quickly show results than spending the next 120 days talking about brick colors with you before we actually move the needle. And so that gets me really excited. I'm sorry your email hasn't come through yet, but I don't mean to digress. Here it is. Yep.
Yeah, no, I have personally spent way too much money on plans and with architects that refuse to give like the CAD files, and like I think that this concrete pit mold might end up being a problem because I don't think I own it. I think our architect owns it. So I've cycled through 4 different companies, including ModLogic, Pleasant Valley, another company here in Central PA. And so each time we've gone through the plans, I've tried to make it a little bit better just to be more rubber stampable, to just cover the snow load for Maine, the rain load for Seattle, the wind load for Seattle, all that.
I love this. And so that's to me is a follow-up discussion as we, maybe without, bogging down the Withco team and everybody else is, that follow-up discussion for us is who owns the current prototypes, designs, and concepts you have, and how we can then, for instance, if we have the opportunity to start working with you, how we can really utilize a lot of what's already completed, copy with pride, however you want to, classify it in a legal sense in every one of the states we're going to work in. But we don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? Outside of having someone do checks on calcs and things like that, we want to be able to run with you. And so I love everything that you guys have put together. Troy, anything more on those kind of logistics, or do we want to dive in, as Costa pointed out, to some of the financing side of it with Withco and how that structure would look?
No, I'm fine with that. Thanks, Bob.
Okay. Costa, anything else to add before we jump into some finance piece?
Nope. Unless Justin or Brandon have anything.
No, I don't.
Well, one question I have, I just want to clarify that the price proposal that we received from SITEOlogy, I understand it very clearly, but I'm assuming that it's that cost plus whatever the cost of the the building is, it equals total project cost. Can you kind of explain how that works, so that I want to make sure I understand, just before we get talking about financing.
Yeah, that's perfect. I can take that. And so the proposal we gave you, and I will say this as kindly, as candid as I can, also came before I knew you had 162 markets, right? And so with scale, everything can always improve, I'll say right off the bat. But the pricing that we provided is for our services and the deliverables outlined within, which would be all of the design, entitlement, and then construction management related work, plus the deliverables of those designs. So our price does not include any fixed costs from a material or a construction or a land standpoint, or even permitting fees or anything like that. It's really the easiest way I think to look at it is the cost per site to have a development team go manage that project for you. And then when I say manage it, and we can get into the details, it can literally be soup to nuts, every aspect of working with financiers, franchisees, GCs to handle everything through the contracts and the design and the paperwork. I mean, really take that soup to nuts while still being your brand, your initiative. We become an owner's rep on what I would say is the corporation, or however you guys structure it, on your behalfs.
Okay, and obviously, I think, as Costa alluded to, the soup to nuts is going to be the best way for us, since given our internal capabilities at this point. But I guess at what point would we know more about the total cost of the actual building and the materials and the things? Is it the case that you've got to do your own design? How does that? When would we know what that total number would be, or at least have an idea?
Well, I guess candidly, I see that you already have, and Costa shared it with us.
So I sent that itemized just so that you could kind of say plus minus 5% if you're going to be in that ballpark. I just wanted to make it easier for you guys to see what we're working with.
And I will tell you all, and I know no one's going to like this answer, but I preface it with I'm personally a big fan of under-promising and over-delivering. So I have a hard time putting fixed numbers to anywhere USA, because as you all know, certain markets, and it's not even just big markets, the New Yorks and Californias of the world, there's little towns sometimes that can be even more strenuous and difficult, and especially when you get into more rural or remote markets, labor, material, and all those prices fluctuate. But my longer answer for you, Justin, is that before we would be comfortable giving you some revised pricing on what we think one of these would cost, we'd want to sit down with our architecture and design teams and do a scrub of your existing prototype for a value engineering standpoint to see if there's ways that we can help improve design and or material costs and selections. As an aside from that, part of SITEOlogy owns a distribution company. So we distribute not only equipment that would go in your facility, we have distribution agreements for brick, Nichiha, concrete line paneling, roll-up doors. And so we've really worked to create truly a turnkey solution where we're even working to spec and buy out materials for your buildings at or below market cost through distribution agreements. And so I would prefer to do the budget scrub after our architectural and construction teams do a value engineering review with you, and then we would strategically then work with a handful of our preferred general contractors in the markets that we know you're going into, which is, I did it yesterday, 23 states, right? As you pointed out, Costa, and I actually counted 176 sites, or 172 total sites or markets sold. So we would then work with our GCs and our preferred partners in those regions to get real world quotes and provide them to you.
Yeah.
Troy,
Bob, can I take this from you? So after we review the drawings and such, we will develop a pro forma estimate for the construction. That pro forma estimate you can use means factors to actually put it to a specific state. So I like to say that's a plus or minus 10% estimate. After submission to the city and receipt of first comments, we then typically bid it to a general contractor. We believe the parts package will be fairly standard. So once we bid that to the GC, you will have a very good market number. But I like to say the initial pro forma estimate, once you apply a means number, just the standard means index, it'll get you to within 10% of total project cost. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that explanation. I'm just going to throw a couple of real quick things out, and then I'm going to be silent and we can turn to the Wisco folks. One is that with respect to ownership of the designs that Costa has shared, we do not, I believe, have the ownership. As Costa noted, the architect that created those owns it, and because there's an ongoing program that we have right now that is still in operation, we have to handle this very delicately. So I want, with regard to sharing things with Moss, generally speaking, I think we are okay with it, but I just want to make sure everyone, just as a matter of transparency, understands that some of that stuff is owned by a third party. Secondly, with respect to the actual market store economics, it's important to us, even though, as Costa noted, we understand that costs have gone up, and we have now a lot of demand for buildings very quickly. And so we are, I think, a little bit more flexible than we were in the beginning about total project costs. But I do want to throw out there that the actual economics of our model, don't support $1 million plus building or total project costs. And not anywhere close to that. So I just want to make sure, I think Bob, Costa shared that with you. And so you have some point of reference. So as you're putting together your pro forma, you have a good understanding of, while there's some leeway, we don't want to go down this road and end up with a product that is not sustainable for our business.
Look, this whole idea stemmed from when I had the Amish build me a 36 by 24 pole barn on my property for 20 grand, and I was like, I could do business out of this thing. And I'm like, why? Like, why is Take 5 spending $1 million plus per building when they're doing the same amount of oil changes as some of our stores are doing? There's margin to be had if we can figure this building out.
Agreed.
There's no doubt.
Yeah. Once we review the drawings, I assume the current design has actually been put on the site or is under construction. So once it's in the public view, we can actually review that. And I believe, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, and I may get this percentage wrong, but as long as we engineer 20% of that building, the design becomes basically yours.
Design or alter, right?
Yes, 20% of that building. And there's multiple ways to do that. I'm not going to get into the legalese of it. And I don't want to simply copy their building. My viewpoint is improving on their building. So
correct. And Justin, just the last thing I'd say to the price side of it is this is a standard conversation we have. All of our best clients want it faster and cheaper, right? I mean, that's the nature of it. And they want it perfect quality. They want all three. And typically you're only going to, most GCs will only give you two. But a part of what we do is, and a part of how we help hold costs back are speed and scale, right? It's working with preferred partners, so you're not bidding all 172 sites individual GCs. You work to really price it well and then gain partnerships. And in our experience, when you can lay out 7 sites in front of a GC, you can get a lot more aggressive pricing when they know they have a path forward versus, hey, each job, go back to the bid book. So this is, as Troy pointed out, this is what we love. This is one of my favorite things, is helping define, refine, and tailor a program that just runs as fast as we can, successfully and efficiently. So with that, I guess one question, go ahead, unless I cut you off there, Troy.
No, just the other thing I was going to add is one of the things I believe we bring, because just of the volume of projects we've done, we have partnered GCs in just about definitely every state except for maybe North Dakota. But in general, we have GCs that we work with extensively. And so getting them access to your designs and such, and we, I can't say I'm the most tolerant guy when it comes to GC performance. So I have very good faith in the GCs that we use. So I do believe we'd be able to secure you some very competitive pricing. So that's all, Bob. Thanks.
Thank you, Troy. And so I guess going in that pricing vein, I'd love to turn it over and learn more about how these are being purchased, funded, built between Costa and the franchisees, and where Withco fits in. Any context you can give us all on that?
Yeah, I'll talk about the current model, and then I'll hand it over to Kyle, because we're obviously new to Withco as well. But the current model is a leaseback program that a former SVN broker started called Easy Leasebacks, where they have partnered with private investors to fund different operations. One thing we did like about our current program is it's not like what's currently going on in our space, where Take 5, Valvoline, and Jiffy Lube have basically turned into real estate companies where they're flipping these triple net leases and making most of their money from the sale of real estate. Our franchisees have the opportunity to purchase the land at not a unreasonable, purchase the building at not an unreasonable rate, and the rent that's being hoisted on them is not so unreasonable that they can't focus on delivering the best service to the customer. So that had always been our our goal. The problem is where we started versus where we are now changed quite a bit. Whereas the franchisees put up money up front for, well, actually, I'm going to hand it off to Brandon. I saw he came off camera, so I hope he didn't get pulled away by someone in the office. But he has been dealing more intimately with the exchange of funds as far as the leaseback program goes. And then we can hand it off to Kyle to talk about how they could potentially replace this program.
Sorry, I did get pulled away for a second, but I'm still here. So the way the leaseback program works right now, as far as funds and distributing those funds, is on a draw system. It's a 3-phase draw. So the first draw comes out as soon as the permitting is done. Once there's a permit in hand for the building, the leaseback program will do 33% of the full amount of the project cost, and that goes to the GCs to get the site work started, the land work done, the pits dug, all of that. The second draw goes to the building development. So the building creators will get paid off that second draw, and then have the building scheduled to be on site. And then the third draw is for the finishing teams. They are the ones that come in, put up all the bathrooms and getting all of the final touches done. And there is some out-of-pocket expense right now for the franchisees. They are for lack of a better word, the
security deposit to start, right? To engage.
Yeah.
The engagement.
Yeah, that's to engage, but it's the 36,000 is 36,000 of their personal money goes into it, and that's what is allocated by the leaseback team right now. That's their threshold. If it goes above 36,000, the people that we're dealing with will not reimburse anything over 36,000. So they pay out of pocket up front for permitting, architectural fees, going to the hearings, all of that up front. And then the leaseback program, once they get the keys to the building, will get reimbursed for all of that upfront costs.
If I can just add, we had a conversation with Kyle and Mike from Withco several days ago, where we kind of outlined that same process, Brandon and I, with respect to how we have been doing things. And during that conversation, we talked about several changes that we would like to make moving forward. And Kyle, and one of them being that no outlay from the franchisee as in our current program. And so I believe Kyle and Mike took notes on that and have a good understanding of where we'd like to go, and were agreeable to kind of working that out. I think they were working through sort of a stale money challenge with respect to, they're putting their dollars in and then having to wait several months before getting dollars out. But I believe they were working through that. So I think that Brandon's 100% right on how we've been doing things, how our program is set up currently. I just want to be clear that is not necessarily entirely where we'd like to go with respect to how we would like to do things. And I think the conversation with Kyle and Mike kind of clarified some of those things. Maybe it's good to transition over to them at this point.
So if I could summarize it, are you headed toward there being one entity that we would work with, and then that entity would work with the franchisees? Or is that the end goal?
I think we would prefer to have, and let me know if this is responsive, Troy, but we have been utilizing our construction and construction finance partner as a third-party vendor that has a direct relationship with our franchisees. We prefer that method. We do not, we have not necessarily considered creating an entity whereby we would provide those services that we then subcontract out to you. We have not had that discussion. We want to make sure that our franchise partners are under a contractual obligation directly with our third-party vendor, which would be SITEOlogy and Wisco.
And then as far as operations go, I think that's one of the biggest pain points that we've had also is the construction management and operations project management of the actual buildings being built and communications being there for everybody. We would still be a party to what's going on just to stay in the loop, because we do have a lot of franchisees that come to us and ask questions so we can kind of guide them. But just to Justin's point, it is better to have a direct contact between the franchisee and our partners, and we're just there kind of to observe and advise on the operation side of things instead of the project management side of things.
I'm going to say something that will sound a little bit indelicate, and I don't mean it to be that way, but is there aside from the contractual agreement with us, is there a way, one of the things in starting in from the beginning with Seven and with other companies is we don't want to become a collection agency, for lack of a better term. Is there a way to ensure that the franchisees have put these funds aside such that we can just draw from them? If you understand where I'm going with this, if we're going to get to a program that involves 160 locations, we can get a fairly substantial amount of capital out very quickly.
One of the reasons, one of the reasons we invited Wisco to this call is to be that solution, so that they can chase the money if need be.
Right. You wouldn't be getting paid directly from franchisees, and that's why it was a little bit confusing with our current program. There's some initial outlay of capital by our franchisees. But that's not where we want to go. All of the funding that's paid to SITEOlogy would be coming from a fund that Wisco controls that they set up. They're buying the building, they're funding the construction, leasing it back to the franchisees, and recouping their costs via the rent from franchisees with personal guarantees on those leases from the individual franchisees. So you're not chasing 160 franchisees.
Perfect. So basically, I just chase Kyle down, is what we're saying. As long as he doesn't wear the Nats hat, we'll be fine. So,
Yeah,
no, that's great. In a program of this magnitude and speed, there are certain things that become like I don't want anything to thwart progress and speed. That's just the way I am. And anyway.
And I believe from our standpoint at Costa Oil, if a franchisee is going to use SITEOlogy to build their building, they will be required to use Withco to fund the project, unless
that's perfect.
Yeah.
So Kyle and Withco, would you all have a different structure then, as far as I guess in my experience with sale leasebacks, it's typically there hasn't been draws along the way, and it's after the project's completed. And I used to think that it was just CFO that was required for a sale leaseback. I've since learned that's the easiest thing to get. It's the subcontractor lien releases, the updated Alta with all new surface finishes recorded, and all of those items. Are we still on the same page? That's a similar structure that you all would set up, or is there a different process under your organization?
No, correct. It's the same type of third-party due diligence, that goes in beforehand with your Alta survey, your phase one, your zoning, and we do PCR on already built structures. We don't have one here, so we don't even need that, I'd imagine, for these new developments. So, similar or same third-party due diligence stuff that is involved in all the deals. And then correct. We fund that stuff. So we'll go ahead and, we work with vendors all the time. I guess we'll connect it. If this goes through SITEOlogy, we'll connect on, who's going to go ahead and do that vendoring stuff. Obviously you guys have your own partnerships and we have ours, and we're not as tied, I'm sure, as you guys are. We're a much newer company. So that can be stuff that talks out, but don't worry about chasing down the franchisees. Unfortunately, like, Costa alluded to, that's going to be our job, right? We'll have the lease contracts with them, so they'll be paying us the rent, and we'll be funding with you guys. So you guys just have to work directly with us.
So essentially, from what I'm hearing, the next step would be to establish a MSA with you from SITEOlogy.
Yeah, correct.
That is something we can work toward very quickly.
And we're going to have a rider in each lease that we can step in and take it over as a corporate store,
right,
as well.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. That's huge, Costa. I can't tell you how big of that's a roadblock remover right there.
Yeah, I love that.
From the landlord perspective, yeah. So I guess I'll touch on a couple things, unless I saw you were about to say something there, Troy.
No, not at all. I was about to sneeze. I'm sorry, I'm fighting the cold.
So I'll just touch on a couple things. Costa, you were on the call with Brandon, Justin, myself, and Mike. So they did say you guys were looking to, the $36,000 outlay that's currently going on with your franchisees. You guys are looking to shift over and no longer require them to do that. So totally makes sense, right? They're when people are getting into the franchisee world, a lot of times they don't have all the kit. They have to outlay a bunch of capital for different reasons, and the real estate a lot of times is not something that they foresee having to do. So, that kind of, I think what we'll do, and the easiest solution for that, if we think about it on that $36,000, whatever it was that they were putting in, basically what we'll do is simply we'll outlay that capital. We will add that to the cost basis, and that will be part of what appreciates for that purchase option. I also
Tyler,
oops, go ahead.
Sorry. Are you comfortable sharing company economics and background just with our legal team?
Of course, yeah.
Perfect.
I think I did a poor job also when I first chopped on here as explaining what we do. I had gone in detail, obviously, with Costa, Brandon, and Justin, and kind of overthought SITEOlogy, kind of referencing. But yeah, we're all cash buyers. obviously investing partners is really what we are, right? So we're real estate investors, but we're actually trying to build the first lease to own company for the commercial space. Obviously, it's gotten really big in the residential space. And you have a company that is kind of bifurcated, Keyway, they kind of bifurcated a similar kind of idea, but it's not their mainstay. We are a true simply lease to own. And Costa, they shared with me Peter's kind of metrics on his appreciation for the purchase options, which year 1, 15%, year 2, 30%. Ours is 4 to 5% a year. So it's a 5-year lease with a purchase option in year 5, and it appreciates 4 to 5% a year. So, with the compounding, come year 5, it ends up being, around that 27% appreciation in year 5. So, in my opinion, obviously the economics on that are much more feasible for the franchisee or just, right? So Troy's nodding his head there. Like I said, I think I kind of left that out of the introduction. So I also wanted to put that out there for anybody that was not aware of exactly who we are and what we do.
That's actually very attractive.
Yeah. And to top it off, what we do is, so as we get paid rent years 1 through 5, we store each rent payment that we get. We take a piece of that, we put it in an escrow account. And as they pay us rents years 1 through 5, we store up a 10% of that year 5 purchase price in an escrow account. So traditionally, when they go to get, when they execute that purchase option and they go to, say, get an SBA 504 loan, that requires a 10% down payment. We have it in an escrow account and we take it out and we put it down for them in cash. They never have to outlay that capital. And it's not something that we don't get paid back on it. It is just rental credit for being good partners and paying us rent on time for the 5 years throughout the lease. So, it's a cool. It's been fun to join this team, and we're Series A company, so it's new bringing it to the market, but it's been a lot of fun.
Wow, I've never heard that option. So
no, you have not. It's brand new.
That is awesome.
Damn.
That's like
okay.
I'm gonna jump in real quick because I don't know if Teams will kick us off in a minute and a half. So I think next steps is what everybody wants to hear. The reason I led with that Warren, Ohio site is so that everybody on this call has something to dig their teeth into right off the bat. We do have our franchisees that are engaged with our current system. There's a lot, like Justin mentioned, that it's a sensitive situation, so we can't pull them out without kind of liability exposure. So, if we can figure out a way to make this work, I would love for everyone except for the maybe 5 people who are currently engaged in our current leaseback program to make the announcement, to connect them with this process, and have everyone go through you guys. Obviously, there's other steps that have to happen before that, but just from this call, feel really good about it. We've got 45 seconds left, so I don't have anything else to add other than I really enjoyed hearing what I heard on this call today, so I'm excited.
Yeah, just so you know, I did extend the call in case we need to keep talking. I'd like to go through. So I think it's imperative that we get a MSA going between Withco and ourselves. And I was just curious if Costa, either yourself or Kyle, had any feedback on the proposal that Bob sent over.
Well, one thing, if I know you asked Costa, but let me just jump in real quick and say I would be interested in seeing the reductions that Bob mentioned that might be available based on the volume that of the buildings that we're talking about. So that would be one piece of feedback is if there are, because of the number of units, if there are reductions to that, we would be interested in seeing that, obviously.
Absolutely. And one of the things my assumption is we want to go extremely quickly on this. So 2 things I would ask is, I believe we have an NDA in place between our companies.
We don't, Troy. That's what I was going to get out with the MSA. Make everybody feel better, would get an NDA out the next day or so while we work through the MSA. Because this was an introduction through Nick that we just took and obviously to see where it went. It's moving quickly.
Yeah, as you guys can kind of see how I operate, this is why it's important for me to have a Justin. Otherwise, I would have bought the Empire State Building and put my name on it without consulting anybody. But
So I would like to very quickly present this to our modular partners because I believe there's some real efficiencies of scale there, but I don't want to do that without an NDA that protects both of us. So I'll hold off on that, just so we're clear.
Okay, great. And then, Troy, you and I can connect on the economies and scale and savings, and because I want to be able to get these guys something, but on the other side of the coin, I also want the design team to be able to meet with your team and really dive into those plans, because I mean, that's where I think a lot of our savings will come in. When I hear this $36,000 previous program, guys, that barely covers an Alta, a geotech, and a prelim application fee and on some of these new ground up developments, right, or an asbestos report, et cetera. So what I'd like to see is how we can get to some economies of scale, and the quicker we get to a baked out prototype that we know we control, or collectively we all control, and then can deploy in each market specifically, that's where those savings come. And so similar to which I'm sure you're not going to like to hear, to the modular builder who had the price point, as we call it, like the haircut card, right? After 10 haircuts, you get the 11th one free, or at a discounted price. That is a similar structure that we run as well to show that commitment, because if you give somebody rock bottom pricing for 100 sites at site 1 and they stop at site 2, that really hangs us out at risk. So I'll take that back with Troy here and see if we can refine that a little closer. And Costa, because you sent the site there in Warren, is that a site that you're already under on, or that you would, is that something that we could start working on as an actual site for you?
I mean, or
is there another one you'd want us to look at?
I've got another one in Akron. I've got another one in Lorain. I've got one in Three Rivers, Michigan. I've got these are all speedway sites that have been remediated with NFAs on file with the state. You know, they've if that's what it takes to kind of get this thing going, and if Withco wants to fund them as corporate stores to start our relationship as well, I'm super open to that as well, because we do have to get the franchisees through LOIs and leases before we can funnel them in. But as just like an offer of operating in good faith, I have no problem kicking things off with a corporate store.
We would love it. Yeah, it'd be great.
Troy, what are your thoughts?
Number one, I agree, let's go. But secondly, where are we at Warren? I understand that it's been remediated, but plans submitted to the city?
We
do plans exist?
We talked to somebody. So this is what happened. I immediately wanted to move forward with Warren. We started talking to the neighbor because they had actually built on the property after we had the Alta. And so they ended up removing some like parking spaces that they had made. And then when I found out that our leaseback program was going to create a queue, I didn't feel comfortable cutting the line of franchisees. So I told them, I said, we're pulling out of this project because I don't want to be in front of anybody. The franchisees are more important. And so it's just an empty lot.
Okay, so nothing submitted to the city?
No,
any SIRs?
we know that it's an approved use from talking to the appropriate people. We haven't done anything besides that one. I think they did a preliminary site drawing, and I think I sent that to you.
Correct.
Yeah,
you did. And so if that Warren site is, I'm with Troy. If that's where that stands, and that's hot on your mind, I think we start with that one.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, and Troy and John, step on me if I'm wrong here, because there's the big picture, guys, and a program as a whole, and now there's this Warren site. And so, by the way, I forgot to tell all of you, I am a Bengals fan. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. So, day before I forget that when I hang up. But if that's the site, I think what I would do is I'll work with Troy and our team here, and we'll provide you. We phase out our proposals and our pricing for real sites as they go under. So, we're not going to give you a hard construction management number or, certain numbers until we continue to evolve through the process. So let us come back to you here early next week with a a test fit and a zoning investigation, and some of these services that we think that we know are the next accurate steps to move the needle on this project. And you'll be able to start to see those incremental phases and cost points, and we'll be able to run with it. Do you agree with that approach, Troy?
Yeah, Bob, I'd like to do a ZIR on this with a test fit, move to an S. I want this to stand to follow what we consider the gold process for doing these. And I think it would be good for Withco to also see this is the due diligence we do, so they also get a comfort with the piece of real estate as well. I think we use this as the test case for this is how we operate moving forward. And Bob, I will run the hurdles inside of our legal company just to say we're starting work on this. So I'll put my neck out on this one.
Justin can get an NDA out
Fantastic.
before end of day.
Cause if it's okay, we have a standard one, and
That's
to be
fine.
honest, I would prefer not to. Our legal company will, or our legal arm will take 5. I want to go faster than that. So
I'll have your site built and permitted before legal gets done reviewing the NDA.
yeah. So and Costa, just so you know, we have a very boilerplate NDA that protects us
Well,
both.
and so the next because
Hey Bob, you're fading in and out on my side.
yeah, and I apologize because I had to head to a client meeting, so I had to get the car. The other thing I think that would help us really go at scale on Warren, knowing that we just need to essentially get through a test fit and then get in with planning to get hopefully an administrative approval once we do these investigative reporting. Can we get a follow up from the Costa team on how much or little of the prototype for the 2-bay and the single bay kiosk that we can start copying or reusing, whether that's in a PDF or a CAD format, because once we get through a test fit to go on for that planning app to really, get this thing moving forward, we're going to need some elevations in a floor plan. You've already built that, so I don't want to see us lose weeks back and forth with designs. And so if you could help us follow up on, what we can start with as our base file, whether it's the 1-bay or the 2-bay and where those designs stand or which one you want us to start with, then our team can run and look at how we can price out evolving 20% worth to keep everybody in compliance.
Yeah, I think we'll default to that 2-bay. Oh, I think we'll default to that 2-bay just for economics' sake.
Okay, perfect. The full review set that you sent me.
I'll see if I have anything else as well. Like I said, I've paid for many plans at this point, so I want to make sure that Pleasant Valley one was like 3 architects ago.
Fair.
Well,
and I'll take as much as you have, right? Give us a data dump, calcs, CADs, anything, because honestly, the more that we can get, even if we have to recertify, check the engineering, it brings down the costs. Let's be honest.
yeah, and
Brandon, do we have any CAD files at all? What did Brian Winkleman? What was his comments on the CAD file?
He wanted $150,000 for the CAD files, so we don't have the CADs. We just have PDFs. I have the plans from St. Albans that's being built right this second in a PDF form, but I don't have a CAD.
the PDF we can work with that.
Okay, sounds
Yep,
good. I can
we
get
can
that
start
to you right now.
Yep, and as we
Fantastic.
look at reducing site costing and all that, we can do one of two things. One, we can apply the prototype cost over the first 10, like Bob said, or we just treat it as a separate project, get that done, and then from that point forward, it's site adepts going forward. And we have no problem at all saying, at the completion of this, we'll hand you the CAD files. Simply because we're big believers in it's your design. So anyway. And the other item, just so everyone knows, on email you should see our NDA agreement.
Yep, I saw it.
I just sent that over.
Yeah, we just got it. Costa, do you want me to sign that and send it back?
Yeah, go. Well, let Justin. I don't want Justin to. He knows how I am sometimes. Let Justin look at it at least.
Okay.
And if you send it back to me, I'll countersign it. It's Troy.
Cool. Awesome.
Great. So just to recap action items, SITEOlogy team is going to come back with a Warren, Ohio proposal for our phase services with specific site pricing. NDA is already done. Troy, you're going to work through, or will be done today. Troy, you're going to work through the MSA with Costa and the team and the Withco teams.
Yeah, yes. Do we do that with Costa and Kyle, or how do we want to do the MSA?
I think we should probably have one more call with Withco to solidify our relationship, and then we will, and then they can tell us how they want to do things.
Just let us know when you'd like us to start that process.
Yeah, and Troy, if I'm being honest, knowing that Withco and John were also connected some things, I think we're going to need an MSA with Withco and SITEOlogy separately, even if it extends outside of the Costa Oil program opportunities.
Do you want me to send you the original drawings? The literal original? This is
man.
I'm gonna frame these someday because I am not an artist. But these are the original.
Bob will tell you I'm a big believer of sketches in the notebook. So, Bob, I didn't follow at all what you said previous to Costa showing us his detailed engineering drawings.
That's right.
So, Bob, could you repeat that?
Sorry about that. Basically, I think there's opportunities with us, with SITEOlogy and Withco that may be separate of the Costa program. And so I believe that we're going to need an MSA with them, totally separate anyway. So although we may have an MSA with Costa that involves those guys, John and the team's meeting with them for other opportunities as well. It's my understanding.
Yeah, so what I would do, Bob, is I would have MSAs based on the end user agreement with Withco, regardless. So depending upon the opportunity, there would be a Withco Costa, Withco Spruce and Goose, whatever the case may be. So,
Roger that. Okay, thank you for clarifying. And that's it. I think most of the action items on our side are on our side, team.
Yep. And thank you very much. I look forward to working with you all.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, so do I. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Everybody.